He had just lost his job. I should have been his strength. But instead, I was sweating in another man's bed, gasping for air, his name heavy in my throat while my wedding ring dug into the flesh of my finger. That was the moment I knew I had crossed the line. And I would never be the same again. Hello to all my wonderful viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have already subscribed, I appreciate you more than words can express. You are the reason this channel keeps growing. And to all my new and returning viewers who have not subscribed yet, I am so glad you are here. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It is the fuel that powers this space where we share raw, romantic, twisted stories that are as real as they are unforgettable. Do not forget to leave a comment after this video. I truly want to hear what you think, especially after you hear what I did. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Claire Walker. I am 35 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, in a tidy little suburban neighborhood where the trash bins go out on Wednesdays and everyone knows when someone else gets a new car. I have been married to Ethan Walker for over 10 years. We have 2 children, a 9-year-old daughter, Mia, and a 6-year-old son, Jackson. Until recently, we were that couple people called stable. Predictable. Steady. But that was before the layoff. Before Ethan lost everything, and took me down with him emotionally. He had been working in corporate sales for almost 15 years. The company went through a merger. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, he came home earlier than expected, pale and silent, with a single box in his arms, the cliché every man dreads. Just like that, his job was gone. Along with his confidence, his joy, and slowly, his love for me. I remember the way he stared at the TV for hours that first week. How he barely noticed the kids. How he started sleeping in later and later, leaving dishes in the sink, refusing to go outside. He said nothing, but everything about him screamed, "I am drowning." And I tried. I really did. At first, I brought him breakfast in bed. I massaged his shoulders. I told him it would be okay. I reminded him how strong he was. But he did not respond. Not with words, not with touch. He withdrew into himself like a shadow sliding off a wall. The man who once used to reach for my waist in the kitchen now flinched when I touched his hand. Weeks turned into months. The sex stopped. The laughter died. And in the place of my husband was a ghost, one who wore his face but had no heartbeat for me. I was desperate for warmth. I started going to the gym again, partly to blow off steam, partly to feel something. Anything. That was where I met Jake Monroe. Jake was 30, tattooed, and charming in a way that made you feel like the world was just a little brighter when he smiled at you. He was not just a trainer, he was a presence. And he noticed me. He asked if I needed help adjusting the treadmill incline one day, and when he reached over me, his fingers grazed mine. That simple touch felt like oxygen after months of suffocating. I smiled, wide, real, maybe even flirtatious. He smiled back like he had been waiting for that moment. It started slow. A few glances. A shared joke. Him offering to show me a new workout plan. I told myself it was harmless. That I was just lonely. That this was attention I needed but did not intend to act on. But that was a lie. I wore tighter leggings to the gym the next week. Applied mascara I had not touched in months. And when Jake complimented my form, his hand guiding my hips during a lunge, I felt wet heat between my thighs. The guilt came next. Like a storm cloud over a picnic. I would come home to Ethan, make dinner, tuck in the kids, and then lie awake at night with Jake's voice in my head. The night it finally happened was a Wednesday. I had stayed late after a spin class. Jake asked if I wanted to try one-on-one boxing. He had a private studio behind the gym. I hesitated, but my body said yes before my mouth did. That studio was dimly lit. The air was heavy with sweat and silence. We threw some punches, laughed, and then he said I looked strong and sexy. His voice was low, rough. My knees buckled, but I stood tall. And then, he kissed me. It was not soft. It was not polite. It was fire. And I burned for it. I let him press me against the wall. His hands slid under my sports bra, and when his fingers teased the edge of my waistband, I did not stop him. I should have. But I did not. The sounds that escaped my mouth were ones I had forgotten I could make. He picked me up. Carried me to the padded bench. And right there, under a dim red light, I gave my body to him. I was not thinking about Ethan. I was not thinking about guilt. I was only thinking about how alive I felt. How seen. How touched. Afterwards, I sat up, pulled down my leggings, adjusted my messy hair, and realized I had crossed a line I could never uncross. That night, I walked into my house and kissed my kids goodnight. Ethan was already asleep. I crawled into bed beside him, still carrying Jake's scent on my skin. My heart was a war zone of shame and satisfaction. But that was only the beginning. Because secrets have a way of showing themselves, even when you think they are buried deep. And the next time I saw Jake, he said something that made my blood run cold. I told myself it would only be once. That night in Jake's studio, the moaning, the sweat, the aching satisfaction, I thought it was a mistake I could bury. But the truth was, I could not wait to feel it again. And I did. Over and over. Every excuse I could find, I used it. I stayed late at the gym. I offered to pick up protein shakes from that health store 2 blocks from his apartment. I even faked a few Saturday morning errands, lying to Ethan about grocery sales while I rode Jake like a woman possessed, leaving my wedding vows in a puddle beneath his sheets. The thing is, I was still playing wife at home. I cooked dinner. I helped with homework. I kissed Ethan's cheek like nothing was broken. But it was. I was broken. We were broken. And Jake, he made the pieces feel like they still had value. At first, it was just lust. A distraction. But Jake started texting me outside the gym. Memes. Late night, thinking about you, messages. Shirtless photos that I knew I should have deleted, but saved. He made me feel desired. Not just wanted, claimed. Meanwhile, Ethan barely spoke. He had not gotten another job. He barely tried. He slept more, showered less, and stared at his laptop like it had personally betrayed him. He ignored calls from old colleagues. He started drinking during the day, whiskey he poured into coffee mugs. I tried once to talk to him. I sat next to him on the couch, placed my hand on his thigh, and whispered, "You do not have to give up." He just looked at me like I was speaking a different language. His eyes were empty. After that, I stopped trying. Jake, on the other hand, started taking up more space in my life, and in my thoughts. He would grab my hand while we walked from the gym to his car, fingers interlocked like we were a real couple. He kissed me in public once. Quick, but with heat. He asked questions about my life, about Mia, about Jackson, about what I wanted beyond marriage and motherhood. No man had asked me that in years. I told myself I was alive again. That I had earned this. That a woman could not pour from an empty cup, and Ethan had drained me dry. But with every orgasm, every secret meetup, I was digging a deeper grave for the life I once had. It all escalated the day Jake invited me to a cabin upstate. He said it was a weekend fitness retreat for clients, but really, it was just him and me. He wanted to take me away, no kids, no schedules, no husband. Just the woods, wine, and his hands around my waist. I said yes. I told Ethan there was a women's yoga event in Cincinnati. I kissed our children goodbye. I even cried in the car on the way out, but not enough to turn back. That weekend was unreal. Jake and I made love by the fire, on the porch swing, even in the damn kitchen. I laughed until I cried. I danced in nothing but a shirt and socks. He cooked breakfast while shirtless, and I stared like a teenager on prom night. He said, "You deserve more than you are settling for." And I believed him. But paradise has a price. When I returned home Sunday night, I walked into silence. Ethan was on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen. There was no whiskey mug in his hand this time. Just his phone. And a look I had not seen in years. He asked one question. "Who is Jake?" My stomach dropped so hard I thought I would vomit. I played dumb at first. But then he pulled out a photo. A screenshot. It was a picture of me, barefoot on a porch, wrapped in Jake's arms, the swing in the background, the damn wine glass still visible on the table. "Someone sent this to me," he said. "From a blocked number." My throat went dry. I could barely form words. He stood up, walked over to me, and whispered, "Do not lie to me, Claire. If you lie right now, I will never look at you the same again." And so, I told him the truth. Not all of it. Not the gym sessions. Not the sex on his birthday. Not the moaning in the back of Jake's car. But enough. Enough to kill something between us. He did not yell. He did not cry. He just nodded. Then he picked up his keys and left. I did not hear from him for 2 days. He did not answer calls. He did not return texts. He even turned off the kids' iPad so I could not FaceTime them. When he finally came home, he handed me a manila envelope. Inside were 2 things, a printed bank statement, with a large withdrawal to a lawyer, and a folded piece of notebook paper. It was a list of dates and times. Gym check-ins. Locations. Gas station receipts. One entry read: Saturday, March 16th, Claire leaves house 6:12 a.m. Returns 2:47 p.m. Jake's building confirmed. He had been tracking me. Not just following. Recording. Observing. Documenting. Like a man preparing for war. That was when I realized something terrifying. Ethan had not been broken. He had been planning. His silence was not surrender. It was strategy. And now, I was cornered. What came next tore our home apart. But the worst part? Jake was not who I thought he was either. Because the man I had given my body to had a secret of his own. And when I found out, it was almost too late. I stared at the paper in my hands, my fingers trembling. Each line Ethan had written felt like a punch to the ribs. He had known for weeks, maybe months. He had been watching me move in and out of another man's world like a snake in the grass, recording my betrayal like an accountant calculating the exact cost of heartbreak. I had not just betrayed my husband. I had underestimated him. And now, I was about to pay for it. After that night, the house felt like a courtroom. Ethan did not speak unless it was about the kids or logistics. He started sleeping in the guest room. He removed every photo of us from the walls. I noticed his wedding ring was gone. He had filed for divorce. And what gutted me the most was that he did it quietly. No slamming doors. No screaming matches. Just a clean, cold exit plan. As if the love we had built over a decade had been wiped off his internal hard drive. I tried to explain. I told him I had been lonely, that I had reached out to Jake because I was drowning in emotional neglect. But Ethan stared at me and said one sentence I will never forget. "You did not reach out. You escaped." He was right. And yet, it was not just my marriage that was crumbling. My fantasy was, too. Because Jake, the man I had risked it all for, began to change. The messages slowed. He stopped inviting me over. His voice, once filled with hunger, now sounded distant. And one night, when I showed up at his apartment unannounced, something happened that shattered every illusion I had left. A woman answered the door. She was tall, brunette, stunning, maybe a few years older than me. She wore a silk robe and smiled politely, like she knew exactly who I was. Before I could say a word, Jake appeared behind her, shirtless and annoyed. "Claire," he said flatly. "You should not be here." My breath caught in my throat. "Who is she?" I asked, even though the answer was already stabbing me in the chest. The woman raised her hand calmly and said, "His fiancée." I blinked. "What?" Jake stepped forward. "I was going to tell you. It was complicated." I slapped him. Hard. I had never done that to anyone before. "She is pregnant," the woman added, touching her stomach gently. "We are due in December." I stumbled back. The world tilted. Jake did not follow me down the hall. He did not beg. He just closed the door, and with it, the chapter 1 had destroyed my marriage for. I drove home in silence, mascara streaked down my cheeks, my phone buzzing in my lap. It was Ethan. A single message. "I am picking the kids up from school this week. I think it is better if they stay with me for a while." I had lost it all. My husband. My children. The man I thought had saved me. And in the days that followed, reality set in. Mia called me crying. She asked why Daddy was sad. Jackson asked if I was still his forever mommy. I answered both with a shaking voice and a heart that felt like glass splintering in my chest. Ethan's lawyer emailed me a proposed settlement. It was clean, generous even. He was not trying to ruin me financially. He just wanted distance. And that hurt even more. Because if he had yelled, thrown things, fought, maybe I could have believed he still cared. But silence? Silence meant I was already dead to him. Weeks passed. I moved into a 2-bedroom rental close to the school. I picked up shifts at a boutique downtown to make ends meet. I stopped going to the gym. I deleted Jake's number. I spent most nights in the dark, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan and wondering how the hell I had ended up here. One night, I got a letter. It was handwritten, no return address. But I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. "Ethan. Claire. I wanted to hate you. God knows I tried. But hate requires passion. And I burned that out years ago, not because I stopped loving you, but because we both stopped seeing each other. You reached for someone else because I stopped reaching for you. That does not excuse what you did. But it explains it. This will not be a revenge story. I will not raise our children to hate their mother. But I will raise them to understand that actions have consequences. That even love, once betrayed, does not always return. I hope you find peace. Not in another man's arms, but in your own skin. Goodbye. Ethan." I read it 3 times before the tears came. And for the first time, I let them fall without trying to stop them. Months later, I found myself on the porch of a quiet cafe, sipping coffee alone. A man sat 2 tables away, smiled at me once, then went back to his book. He did not flirt. He did not stare. He just shared the same air. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something small inside me, a flicker, not a fire. Not desire. But self-recognition. I had lived through my worst betrayal, one I inflicted. I had hurt the man who once held my soul in his hands. And now, all I could do was live with the truth. I was not the victim in my story. I was the storm. And every storm eventually calms. But the damage? It stays.